There was some very interesting news that came out last week in the retail space. Gap Inc. announced that it will be splitting off Old Navy as its own entity, creating a new company called NewCo, which will hold Gap, Banana Republic, Athleta, and a few new brands they are picking up. So I want to give some context around the news and speculate on where things might go from here. So Gap Inc. was started in 1969 by the Fisher family. They're based in San Francisco and they run 6 brands: Gap, Banana Republic, Old Navy, Athleta, Intermix, and Hill City. It was just revealed in bankruptcy filings that they picked up Janie and Jack from the Gymboree company, and today they're the largest specialty retailer in the US at $16 billion in revenue and the third in the world, just after Inditex and H&M. Their board is comprised of Fisher family, which will become important later, and they're currently run by Art Peck as CEO. I always like to highlight the importance of Mickey Drexler in the Gap story. He joined Gap in the 90s and helped take Gap from like a lower tier positioning to more upscale. He left in 2002 after 2 years of declining sales and overexpansion. He then went to J. Crew and did nearly the same thing. He led their boom in the 2000s and then he overexpanded, and now they're sitting on a huge balance sheet of debt, and he left the company in early 2019. So Mickey Drexler is kind of like the Jack Welch of the retail world. So Gap was able to ride the rise of specialty retail in the late 80s, 90s, and 2000s. As malls declined in traffic and revenue, they were investing in their own stores, their own brand, within strip malls in suburbia, and they have over 2,000 stores in the US alone. Something started happening after the recession though. So as the recession hit in 2008, consumers started looking for more deals. Gap had invested in e-commerce and that was growing, but their Old Navy brand went on a tear. The Gap banner stores and Old Navy were usually similar in revenue through the 2000s, but following 2008, both brands were growing. Old Navy's growth was outpacing Gap as a whole, especially in operating margins, because they're more of a fast fashion brand. They're also the only brand in the umbrella with positive comparable store sales, which excludes Athleta, but that's a considerably smaller brand. And it's very similar to the way that today Aerie is driving a lot of the growth and profitability of American Eagle. So in the past 10 years, Old Navy has closed stores, honed their merchandise, and really leaned into the fast fashion movement, while Gap has been kind of lost for the last few years, and they're heavily relying on discounting in order to move merchandise, which, as we talked about in the past, is not a way to grow a sustainable brand. And Banana Republic is kind of in that boat too. So that brings us to 2019, where it was just announced that Gap is going to be splitting things off, and here is the board chairman Robert Fisher's statement on the split. Following a comprehensive review by the Gap Inc. board of directors, it is clear that Old Navy's business model and customers have increasingly diverged from our specialty brands over time, and each company now requires a different strategy to thrive moving forward. Recognizing that, we determined that pursuing a separation is the most compelling path forward for our brands. Creating 2 separate companies with distinct financial profiles, tailored operating priorities, and unique capital allocation strategies, both well positioned to achieve their strategic goals and create significant value for our customers, employees, and shareholders. So let's translate that from corporate speak to human speak. Old Navy is on fire and driving most profitability and growth at our company. Having this rocket ship fly on its own will make investors a lot happier and make us a lot more money. Gap, Banana Republic, Athleta, and other brands will make nice businesses, but are lead weights on the feet of Old Navy, which is causing internal management issues and talent retention as our stock has been stagnant since the early 2010s. We want to reposition Gap and our other brands as premium, while Old Navy can go thrive on its own because it's actually growing. We can also do some clever debt restructuring and get rid of a bunch of people in the process, and then do more hiring because we'll have to double some functions as we're no longer a single public entity. So what does this mean for us? Well, first, it's going to take years for this to play out. This type of thing goes very slow, so you really won't see any material changes till late 2020 or even 2021. Old Navy will continue to grow. It seems like they've pared off all their underperforming stores, so they'll likely open more stores and keep on the same path as their merchandising, while Gap will make a big change, which is needed based on their stagnant sales and their heavy discounting just in order to move products going forward. Banana Republic is about the same process. So as their assortment changes, their prices will go up so that they can be profitable again as they position themselves more as like that specialty retail, and they need to compete against all the direct-to-consumer brands that do very little discounting at all. You'll see them invest in their brands. Athleta in particular is a huge growth brand, and that'll be the fastest growing one in this new umbrella company. And they also just picked up Janie and Jack from Gymboree, which is going to be a growth brand for them as well, and our personal favorite children's brand, although it's a little bit higher priced. Keep in mind, Gap is 50 years old this year. They definitely recognize that if they want to make it another 50 years, they're going to have to adapt and change or die. At a consumer level, there won't be a lot of things that you'll notice, especially at first. They'll have to separate their distribution centers, operating and reporting. Essentially, these two companies are going to be two of the largest retailers in the US still. If their best laid plans happen and the new Gap company is able to grow their stock, that could bring in some new fresh management and really get things going on that side, and then Old Navy should take off. And so I'll be interested to see how this plays out. I'm also curious what your thoughts are, if you like one brand or the other, or if you're excited to see some change, if you already shop Old Navy and you're worried that you can't shop with the same credit card at the other places. I think that's all pretty interesting stuff. And so I'm excited to see this new change. I will report on it as I can, because watching this stuff is like better than a movie to me. And so it's just very exciting. So happy to answer any questions and comments down below. Until next time, gents, this is the Kavalier.